Imagine a room. It is quiet, sterile. The hum of the air conditioning is the only sound. The carpet is generic beige, and the lighting is soft and unthreatening. It looks like a corporate office, a place of business, but in reality, it is an operating theater, and the patient is your soul. Imagine that you are offered an evolution. They are not offering you money because wealth is vulgar and common. They are not offering power in the traditional sense. You are offered clarity, a way to bypass the noise of the world, control over your own mind, and answers to questions you have been asking yourself in the dark at 3 a.m. for your entire life. They do not force you. There are no guns and there are no locks on the doors. They simply ask you to prove something. They ask if you are serious, if you are committed to your own excellence, or if you are just a tourist in your own life. All it takes is one step, one gesture of absolute trust, one file, one letter, one secret. They call it collateral. It is a business term, a deposit. It sounds fair and logical. To ascend, you must leave the safety of the shore. In that moment, holding the pen or hovering over the send button, you feel free, you feel brave, but you have just stepped into a cage where the bars are invisible and the lock has just clicked shut. In the engineered reality of NXIVM, there were no physical chains. Keith Raniere did not need dungeons, and he did not need guards patrolling the perimeter. He understood something far more terrifying about human nature. He knew that the strongest prison is the one the prisoner builds for themselves. He had one tool, one mechanism of control that was so elegant and so devastatingly simple that it rendered resistance impossible: collateral. It was never sold as blackmail. Blackmail is ugly and blackmail is a crime. This was framed as accountability. This was called growth. The recruiters and proctors, people you trusted who smiled with warm open eyes, explained it with the patience of a teacher. They told you it was an act of trust. They said that all great transformations require sacrifice, and to truly change, you must burn your bridges so you have no option to retreat. They challenged your ego. They said, you say you want to save the world. You say you want to be a better person. Prove it. Put something on the line. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. It was a test, a psychological gauntlet. And because you wanted to belong, because you wanted to prove you were strong, you agreed. Collateral took many forms. It was curated destruction. It was a letter, handwritten by you, accusing your own father of sexual abuse, an abuse that never happened. But the letter was real, and your signature was real. It was a confession to a financial crime you never committed, like embezzlement or tax fraud. It was a signed affidavit, legally binding, admitting guilt. It was a folder of photographs, naked, vulnerable, and compromising. It was a detailed admission of your darkest, most shameful thoughts, things that would destroy your career, your marriage, and your reputation if they ever saw the light of day. They told you this was for your benefit. They told you it would sit in a secure safe, never to be touched. They said it was just a symbol of your commitment to the path. But the brilliance of the trap was in the selection. They didn't ask for something that you could shrug off. They asked for the one thing that would annihilate you. They asked for the one thing that would make you an outcast. They asked for your life. The moment you hand it over, nothing happens. The world doesn't end and the sky doesn't turn black. The person across from you simply nods, smiles, and places the envelope in a box. They say, "Good, now we can begin." There is no pain and no immediate horror, and that is why it is effective. The poison is tasteless, but a fundamental shift has occurred in the universe, a gravity shift. 5 minutes ago, you were a free agent who could walk out the door, disagree, or question the leader. Now you belong to the box. The psychology of the trap settles in slowly, like frost. The collateral is now the third person in every room. It is the invisible ghost standing behind your shoulder. Suddenly, criticism of the group feels dangerous, not because they will yell at you, but because if you anger them, if you leave, the box opens. Your mind begins to rationalize the cage. You tell yourself you trust them because you have to trust them. The alternative is unimaginable. The alternative is social suicide. The anchor has been dropped. Before the collateral, you stayed because you were inspired. After the collateral, you stay because you are terrified. But you cannot admit the fear, not even to yourself. So you convert the fear into devotion. You convince yourself you love the leader, because if you don't love him, then you are just a hostage, and no one wants to admit they are a hostage. This is where the story moves from manipulation to pure horror. This is where the machinery of NXIVM reveals its teeth. Collateral was not a passive insurance policy, it was an active weapon, a gun pressed against the temple of your future. In the lexicon of the cult, those who left were not just former members, they were labeled suppressives. They were called Luciferians, enemies of the light, and enemies do not deserve protection. You saw what happened to others. You heard the whispers during the intensives about people who lost their way or breached their integrity. It wasn't a direct threat because that would be too clumsy. It was a gentle reminder. A text message at midnight asking, "Are you sure you're upholding your vows? We're worried about your collateral." Imagine the sensation. You were at a family dinner, laughing with your parents, and suddenly you remember the letter. The letter in a safe in Albany, New York, where you admit to stealing from them, or the letter where you accuse them of molesting you. You look at their faces and you know that one phone call from Keith Raniere could shatter this reality forever. You are walking around with a bomb in your pocket, and the detonator is in the hand of a man who calls himself a genius, a man who smiles as he breaks you. Every decision you make is filtered through the lens of the collateral. Can I take this job? Will the group approve? Can I date this person? What if they find out? Can I sleep tonight? The silence of the collateral was louder than any scream. It demanded total compliance. It turned strong, independent people into shadows, nervous and obedient, smiling on the outside while screaming on the inside. As the inner circle tightened and the horror of Dios began to form, the collateral evolved. It became a monthly ritual, a tribute. For the women in the first line of the slave pyramid, the master demanded constant updates. The old collateral was not enough. The leash needed to be shorter. They demanded more photos, more explicit content, more devastating confessions, deeds to houses and rights to children. It ceased to be a deposit. It became a lifestyle of impending doom. You wake up every morning with a single thought. I am safe today only if I am perfect. I am free today only if I obey. The stress creates a unique kind of exhaustion. Your cortisol levels never drop. Your fight or flight response is stuck in the on position. But you cannot fight and you cannot fly. So you freeze. You submit. You become a vessel for their will. Because the pain of obedience is less than the pain of exposure, or so you think. That is the lie the collateral tells you. It whispers that the cage is safer than the wild. There is a question that the outside world asks, a question filled with judgment and arrogance. They ask, how could they be so stupid? Why did they agree to this? This is the most dangerous misconception about NXIVM. And this is what you must understand if you want to see the true horror. NXIVM did not hunt the weak. They did not look for the broken, the homeless, or the uneducated. They hunted the best. The victims of the collateral trap were doctors, actresses, heiresses to billion-dollar fortunes, entrepreneurs, and scientists. Why? Because collateral relies on having something to lose. If you have no reputation, you cannot be blackmailed with reputation. If you have no ambition, you cannot be lured by the promise of success. Keith Raniere weaponized the very traits that make people successful. He preyed on perfectionism, the desire for self-improvement, and the fear of being average. He told these brilliant women that their hesitation was a weakness and that their moral compass was a limitation. He told them that to change the world, you must be beyond shame. It was a hacking of the high-achieving mind. He took their desire to be good and used it to make them evil. He took their desire for freedom and used it to forge their chains. So do not look at them with pity. Look at them with fear. Because if it could happen to them with all their resources, intelligence, and skepticism, it could happen to anyone. It is not a matter of intelligence. It is a matter of how much you want to believe. The story of Collateral brings us back to that first moment. The unremarkable office, the generic folder, the pen in your hand. We often think of freedom as something that is taken away by force. We imagine armies, walls, and decrees. But in the modern horror story, freedom is not stolen, it is signed away. Collateral is not just a piece of paper, it is not just a digital file. It is the physical manifestation of a psychological surrender. It is the moment you decide that the promise of a future is worth the destruction of your present. It is the moment you trade your autonomy for a sense of belonging. The folder closes, the file is saved, the email is sent. And in that silence, you are no longer the author of your own life. You are a character in a script written by a madman. The most terrifying cages are not made of steel. They are not made of iron bars or concrete walls. They are made of shame. They are made of secrets. And they are made of the terrifying, paralyzing, inducing fear of losing everything you have. And the door to that cage is wide open, but you cannot walk through it because you are holding the key and you have forgotten how to use it.